call the meeting to order. Good. Perfect, thank you. We'll start off with a roll call. McKee here, Schultz.
Here.
Bottoма.
Present.
Barenkamp.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Perfect. If you'd like to stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, agenda approval. Do we have anything from staff? I think a couple adjustments.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We do have a few adjustments. We would like to remove item 7A. We'll have council minutes from earlier this year at the next meeting. We did receive a copy of the grant agreement from Comcast, so that copy is on the dais and in your in the packet, council packet. We did receive some public comments this week, and so copies of those have been placed in the public packet as well. And at the dais, we did have a request from Rush Creek Reserve to have their item tabled. So that would be 8C, have that tabled to the May 11th meeting. We would
What about 8D?
to have that, to open the public hearing and continue that public hearing to the May 11th meeting. And then we do have a slightly revised staff report for item 10B, and we are asking to have the Hackamore Road closed session removed as well. So a few removals and a couple additional documents on the desk.
Sounds good. And did we have any comments on?
We do have a couple public comments for later in the meeting.
For nothing on consent?
No public comments. We did receive some questions in advance that we did provide some answers to, and I think we will have an opportunity to open forum.
Perfect.
For anyone to ask those questions.
Great. Sounds good. Anything from council? I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Commission representatives, we have, of course, I flipped up the wrong page. Jay and Phil.
It looks like we have both of them.
Awesome.
At least one of them joining us, and the other might be, Jay is joining us, and Phil might be trying to get on here.
Sounds good.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
can I ask a question? How many people do we have online today?
We currently have 13.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. We'll go on to open forum.
Perfect. So open forum, if anyone wants to speak, I can, if you want to head to the podium and just state your name and address, I can grab that afterwards from you. Sounds great. Perfect. Just state your name and address, and the council can.
All right. Good evening, Jason Bartles, 19795 Hunters Ridge. I saw the Hunters Ridge Road improvements on the agenda, and I saw it on the previous meeting, so that's my open forum topic. Good evening, council members, mayor, staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you also, everybody, for your email responses. I know earlier in the week, I had some concerns and some questions, and I'm firing emails, and I got a lot of responses about how best to deal with this, and staff, and especially Kevin had responded to the email questions. I appreciate that. And some of you others had said, pointed me towards open forum, and I appreciate that direction. I also appreciate the city, how they video record these meetings, because that's what I was watching, was the April 13th video recording, and how I got wind of kind of what was going on with the road. My ears perked up right away when the discussion about the Hunters Ridge Road improvements started with the words appraisals and assessment for existing properties, and discussion around which properties would either have direct or indirect benefit. Usually Corcoran residents don't have to pay for via special assessments for roads, so what's the difference here? Thanks to the email, again, from Kevin, I think I'm a little more educated and informed than I was earlier in the week. So it's my understanding council authorized a feasibility study to evaluate road conditions and make recommendations. However, Kevin noted in the email, it's already anticipated it will require more than a pavement overlay. I don't know who's making that inference, as the road itself is in reasonable shape, except for the culvert area we know needs a little work. I walk that road often, as do my neighbors on both sides of 116, and really that side is no better or worse than our side. And that side was treated with an overlay 2 years ago. It feels to us residents it's already been predetermined there's gonna be additional cost. I believe the appraisal process has already been authorized by council. Hopefully the findings of the feasibility study won't be already biased towards that same conclusion. So, how did Hunter's Ridge get to become in such a dire condition that it may require additional work? Per Kevin's email answer, there's one word and one answer, that being bellwether. Recommended and timely street improvements were intentionally delayed because of potential use by bellwether construction traffic. Thankfully, that didn't happen. We don't want bellwether residents or construction people coming down our road at all. But nevertheless, if there was no bellwether, if there was no bellwether traffic consideration, we'd have certainly gotten our timely preventive maintenance overlay years ago, and we wouldn't be here now talking about additional work and additional cost. It seems clear and obvious conclusion that any potential cost increases are now directly related to bellwether. If the study does determine additional costs are warranted, let bellwether pick up that tab. You know, should they pay for a road they didn't use? No, that doesn't make sense. But that option was held open for them, which delayed regular maintenance that could have and should have been done on the road and placed us in the position we are now. Hunter's Ridge residents should not be asked to bear any of that cost. I respectfully ask council, if it comes down to cost, don't financially penalize us longtime residents now because of a decision council made years ago regarding bellwether. I appreciate your time. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Well said.
Yeah. Anyone else for open forum?
Anyone else joining us virtually can press *9 or click raise your hand. But Mayor and Council, no one at this time is doing so.
Okay. Then we will go on to item 6. We have a couple of presentations. First off is the oath of office.
Michelle will be conducting
Perfect.
an oath of office for our newest officer, Aaron. And
Raise your right hand. I, Aaron Burns, do solemnly swear
I, Aaron Burns, do solemnly swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
within and for the city of Corcoran
within and for the city of Corcoran
and the state of Minnesota.
and the state of Minnesota.
On my honor, I will never betray my badge,
On my honor, I will never betray my badge,
my integrity, my character,
my integrity, my character,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage
I will always have the courage
to hold myself and others accountable
to hold myself and others accountable
for our actions.
for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community, and the agency I serve.
my community, and the agency I serve.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Well done,
Get
you.
all the good picks?
Awesome.
Perfect. Okay. Then we just had one other
yes,
small item, the resolution recognizing National Public Service Week. And I don't know if you wanted to touch on that? or-
sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. One of the things that I thought I'd like to highlight is our staff that we have within the city. So over the next 3 meetings, we have resolutions that we'll have in the packet and just highlight the different groups that we have within city staff. So next week, late next week starts National Public Service Week through May 7th through the 13th. And then we'll recognize National Police Week, May 14th through the 20th, and then National Public Works Week, May 21st through the 27th. So just wanted to recognize all the hard work that our staff do. We have a great team here, and I'm really excited for all the work that we do, and just want to say that at a council meeting and talk about each of our groups and recognize the work that they do.
Sounds good, thank you. Any questions on that? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023-41.
So moved.
A second. Perfect. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nice job, guys.
Okay, on to consent agenda. We have a pretty big consent agenda this week consisting of items 7A through K, I believe. Yep. Does anyone want to pull anything? Nothing? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 7A through 7K.
Didn't we have to strike A?
Yeah.
Yes, we did add to that.
Good catch.
Seven.
Seven, I'll amend
B
my.
through K,
Yes,
and I will second that.
perfect, thank you. Yep.
I thought we were doing something with G also. Am I, nothing?
I think that was the
Certainly, if you would like
question.
to.
We can pull it if you'd
Certainly
like.
could pull it, and we could answer any questions you might have on that.
I'll pull it.
Okay, sounds good.
Sorry about that.
That's fine.
You're okay
No
with
worries.
it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then I will make a motion to approve consent agenda items B through F and H through K.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. 7G, Dean, you wanted to?
Again, my concern, as the resident made comments and such, this is just a study of what needs to be done, and why are we focused on Hunter's Ridge if they had just recently had an overlay 2 years ago?
Couple things there. This portion of Hunter's Ridge is on the east side of 116. So
Yep.
from 116 to Bellwether 8th, or the former Newman Park property. There was reference to a project on the west side of 116.
That's what he was referencing.
Where there, that's kind of the split by the Hope Community
Okay.
Ridge. There's a Hunter's Ridge that goes north, and then there's a Oswald Farm that goes southerly. That was a city quote, you guys are familiar with the free overlay. Each existing neighbor got a free overlay. That project was done in 2021, I believe,
Okay,
on that side of the road.
we're talking strictly
So
east
we're
side on
strictly
this.
talking the east side of the road, and we go around as staff and maintenance folks, and we recommend which roads needed. Hunter's Ridge, this section of Hunter's Ridge east of 116 is the next one up. And the gentleman was correct that it probably would have got overlaid with the other side of the road 2 years ago, if there wasn't the condition with the original Bellwether agreement. If you remember, the Newman West property was bounded by a huge wetland complex and an open space park. So in the original agreement, they may have had to access via Hunter's Ridge, and that was approved back 5-ish years ago. Since then, the developer acquired another access to a site. And there was consideration in that development contract, if they had to use the road, there was an overlay that they would have to do if they use it for construction. Now that that condition's really, in staff's opinion, off the table, we want to address the road. Like any road we do, they're all a little bit different. They were built at different times, as was recognized in one of his emails to us. It's not just an automatic overlay. We want to make sure it's the right project for the road if we're going to make an investment in it. This specific section of road has bituminous curb, which is a complicating factor that's failing. No one likes it. You can't really overlay it, so that's a
Okay.
different factor. Additionally, we have a lot more information of where utilities will go to serve this neighborhood. They're either going to go north of the north homes or likely south of the south homes. We have more confidence that maybe we make a little bit larger investment. We're not talking full reconstruct. We don't know. We don't have the soil borings. That's what you're approving tonight.
Okay.
This is the process we go through as a city when this is our assessment policy. So we're not arbitrarily making decisions. We're following our existing assessment policy that says when you do an overlay, when you do a reclaim, when you do a reconstruction, and when you do utilities, you should consider an assessment. If we don't want to do that, we should change the assessment policy.
So what you're talking about is compatible to Horseshoe Trail?
Horseshoe Trail is a little different. It's very compatible to Corcoran Trail east-west.
All right,
And you don't, this feasibility preserves the option to do an
Okay.
assessment. It doesn't guarantee an assessment, it gives you available data. You know, I shared with that gentleman, what happened with Corcoran Trail, that the council at that time credited the free overlay. So this neighborhood is eligible for a free overlay. That will be factored into the feasibility, and you guys,
Deal.
the council, will have the option to determine what it is. It's a little more complicated because there's more indirects in Corcoran Trail with Bellwether, with some of the stuff, so that'll get fleshed out in feasibility. I don't know what the appraiser, I'm not a certified appraiser, but this is the city's process that we're doing. We're not arbitrarily choosing the road.
and
There's a lot of
without,
factors that go into it, but we don't just say, free overlay, let's do a free overlay.
no, I understand that, but
Value-based.
this is also without connecting into Bellwether also, correct?
That
Or is
Bellwether
that part of
connection
the-
is part of Bellwether 8th. They have to remove that cul-de-sac. That'll formalize a street. This is the part that's not required for
Okay.
development, yeah.
Thank you, well said, and maybe
There's a lot more.
more than
detail.
I needed,
We're
so
still gonna
thank you.
host an open house. There's a lot more
Yep.
that goes into it.
This is the very
So
beginning.
We'd be
of the
happy to meet with the
process.
resident. It came up late. We tried to give them the best of all the data, so we'd be happy to meet with them again and help them understand the process, but.
Sounds like you did good, thank you.
Yeah, I thought you did a great job responding too, because I found the question and answers helpful as well, so.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So there was something called the Spite Strip at the end of that Hunter's Ridge Road, where the original builder took a piece of land and whatever. I think we know the deal. I was against this, but the city of Corcoran made them sell that.
Okay.
And I can't remember the process of how the city went about acquiring that Spite Strip.
So it was a requirement of the plat, is that they had, the Pulte had to obtain that connection.
Yes, but the city of Corcoran sort of like said, because there's not another exit from the neighborhood, they had to buy it, right? We forced that. And, I think since the original purpose of that was taken away, since they added another exit, I know no one will agree with me. I thought the Spite Strip was brilliant, and it was way too much like eminent domain for me. I would be okay with, them selling the land back to the landowners and retaining that Spite Strip. That's all I'll say for now.
And that's not necessarily directly tied to.
It has
that wouldn't
nothing to
change
do with
anything
it.
here. Gotcha.
It was brought up.
Gotcha, yeah, fair enough.
In your mind, making it right again,
Yeah,
I'd like that too.
Something to explore.
Yep.
then we wouldn't have it connected.
Yeah.
That was the reason why.
I think that changes the whole plat though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Well, I think it was platted with the 8 edition.
Yeah.
When the 8 edition got platted, that got absorbed, and now it's city right away.
I get it. I'm not saying it would be easy. I would say we forced somebody to sell their land. So I would, if I ruled the world, wouldn't like government forcing someone to sell their land. And so, whatever. I would be okay with unwinding it, with whatever would fall with that, I guess I'd be okay with it.
I have a question on the history.
Go for it.
How did the city force that? We can make a requirement of Pulte that they have to buy it, but
think
how does
that's
that
what it was.
require a sale? Did Pulte just have to increase the price until it was willingly sold, or how did that transpire?
I believe that the city reached out and purchased it, but it was used through developer
Right.
security.
And to add on to that, members of council, I drafted a purchase agreement for that. It was a direct purchase. I believe it was with funds that were reimbursed from the developer, but it was the developer had to meet the price, had to agree to it, and then the city technically bought the land. But it wasn't a condemnation action or anything like that.
It walked like a duck to me.
Well, it met the owner's price ultimately, so it was reached by negotiation. I think Brad handled most of that. but-
I understand. But basically what Brad used as leverage was either you sell it or we're gonna take it. So although they came to a friendly agreement, it was like, this spite strip is not gonna work. Cause if you don't sell it, we're by the power and authority of the city, we're gonna take it. That was the leverage, whether they came to an agreement or not.
That's what we're saying.
It was, but whatever, I mean.
That's why I was wondering about the history.
We have a big agenda tonight.
Yeah, no, I think it's something that maybe is worth a discussion at another meeting or
So,
meeting.
with that, I'll make a motion to approve, Chief,
Can I ask a question?
if I could.
I'll second it and then any discussion.
Can I just ask staff, so we didn't delay any seal coating of that street, did we, as part of the?
When we, in 2021, 2 years ago, we evaluate the roads, right? And we make a recommendation. That recommendation, because of the uncertainty of the access and the contract considerations, it was decided not to go forward. Now, when we look at the road, we base it on an individual basis. It has bituminous curb and gutter. Most of our roads don't have that. And we now have better information on where utilities are gonna go, so that changes it. So it's really hard to compare a decision made in 2021 with a decision made today based on new information.
I guess my question is, did we delay any preventative maintenance that would have accelerated the need for an overlay?
I think the same process today would probably have been recommended for this street with those considerations. I don't think the road didn't collapse differently in the last 2 years from when we would have, between those two decision points, if that's maybe more in line with your question, yeah, so. Some of the information on the utilities is gonna give us more confidence to maybe make a recommendation that has a little more value for the road, so certain things could play into that recommendation that would have been different, but the same analysis would have been, how do we deal with the bituminous curb? That's a challenge. How do you do an overlay with that? Doesn't make sense to do something else. But we haven't moved the needle in 2 years on the condition of the road.
Gotcha. Good deal. Anything else? Okay, we had a motion and a second to approve, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. On to planning business. We have several planning items. We'll have a public comment opportunity for items 8A through F, although with the note that C and part of D will be tabled.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Anyone joining us virtually can press *9 to raise your hand or click reactions to raise your hand. We'll get started first with those joining us in person, and then anyone joining us virtually, you can either press reactions and raise your hand or *9, and we'll recognize you after those who are in person. So first, in person, I have Steve Mueller. You want to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record?
Well, it's kind of like coming home after a long vacation. Good evening, my name is Steve Mueller, 7474 Fur Lane North. We're all familiar with this project and thought it was done, but here we are. It is unbelievable to every homeowner that there were no safeguards, either in a penalty, large down payment, or legally binding contract to prevent United Properties from completely changing the Applewood format. How can this happen? So I think it's important to refresh all of our memories on how we got to this current approved Applewood situation. This current PUD of the Applewood, 100-unit ownership, the memory care, the daycare, and 19 single-family owned villas was actually rejected 5 times. 3 times by the Planning Commission, twice by the council. However, after the second council rejection, Beth Husted met with a large group of homeowners. Even some of you were at that meeting. Because of the 8 to 10 mixed zoning restrictions, we were left with only 2 options: the current approved plan or all townhouses. Because many townhouses could be investment property and rentals, the unanimous consensus of all homeowners was no rentals. Therefore, the townhouses were removed as the other option. You know, and even though we were concerned about the height of the Applewood being double the shoreline height restriction, we embraced the positives of the Applewood. Plus 62 age, 100 units, most importantly, individual ownership. We then sent emails to the council recommending bypassing the waiting period before returning. Plus, we also recommended approving the PUD on the third time before the council, which you did indeed approve after our recommendation. So now the current proposal changes every one of these Applewood elements, completely backing out on their promises, commitment, and approved PUD. And what's really disturbing is they changed everything for the worst. They changed plus 62 age to plus 55, thereby increasing the daily traffic flow. Many 55-year-olds will still be working, much less so at 62. They increased from 100 units to 145, 45% more units, guaranteed more traffic flow, plus 45 more units at a lower age rate with probably 2 cars. Where are they gonna park 90 more cars? They claim to add underground parking, but we question that the underground and surface parking on that same footprint can really accommodate 90 more cars viably and effectively. And again, of course, more traffic flow is a given, and with little kids in a daycare across the street, that makes it worse. Most importantly, we lost individual ownership versus rentals. We now will have more instability, increased traffic, more moving in and out with rentals versus a previous very stable plus 62 ownership. So with no safeguards, penalties, consequences, or accountability, they've completely thrown out any promises, approvals, and commitments. You know, and please keep in mind, the neighborhood compromised on the Applewood. You accepted it, Trek accepted it, and United accepted it. Now all three original important things of the Applewood, ownership, plus 62, 100 units, are completely gone. I mean, again, how can they do that? You will hear shortly all their arguments to promote their increase from 100 units to 145, not cost effective to only build 3 stories for 100 apartments. They have adequate parking for 90 more cars, a traffic, more units, cars, more people working between 55 and 62 is not really that big a deal, et cetera, et cetera. However, it's difficult to give any credibility to what they say anymore. They will spin
Hold on,
it anyway.
one
they
second,
want.
one second.
I want to make a motion to extend.
Perfect, thank you.
I'll second.
Do I have
I'm
a
sorry,
second?
what?
Your
Oh, we're
3
to
minute
extend
time.
your time limit.
I'm sorry?
We're,
We have a 3 minute
motion
time.
to
Oh,
extend
I'm
your time
sorry.
limit. No, no worries.
I'd
No
made a
worries.
motion to extend it.
Do we have a
And I'll
second?
second.
Thank you
Perfect.
very
All those in
much.
favor say
Thank you.
aye.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize.
No, no worries. I should have notified you.
Okay.
But we're all
Sorry
good.
about
You're
that.
good to
Thank
go.
you very much.
Go right ahead.
So anyway, it's difficult to give any credibility to what they say anymore because they'll spin it any way they want to get approval. Finally, by accepting this new proposal, we will now have rentals, no ownership, and the lower plus 55 age restriction. However, we implore the council to at least please hold them somewhat accountable. That would be keeping the 100-unit facility. It would still only be 1 out of 3 important features not thrown out completely from the original approved Applewood. If they only need 3 stories for 100 units, that's great. The major concern all along was the height of the Applewood double the 25-foot shoreline maximum. Please hold them partially accountable, keep it to 100 units, or here's another option. Go ahead and accept their proposal on page 3 of the staff report, whereby they threaten to leave it vacant if they don't get their way. Here's some important information for you to also consider. On page 101 of the packet, there is a site plan provided from Pioneer Engineering dated April 6, 2023. That plan clearly shows the maximum overall density units in Cook Lake development for the city of Corcoran is 166. And that's using the maximum 10 units per acre. So increasing to 145 units will exceed the maximum entire site density for the whole development. It's in the upper right-hand corner, and just let me reiterate, approving any increase to 145 will be over the maximum overall site density as stated on that site plan for the city of Corcoran. One final note, please get some legally binding agreement that is enforceable to ensure that the plus 55 age restriction is mandated and followed, or based on the way this has gone tonight, 1 year from now, they would claim that they don't have enough applicants for plus 55 and simply open it to all ages. United Properties apparently feels previous approvals, commitments, promises do not apply to them. They made wholesale changes tonight with no accountability. What prevents them from doing it again? So in summary, please keep the apartments at 100 units for 2 reasons. Hold them accountable for at least one of the 3 Applewood features that we lost. And second, please follow that City of Corcoran site plan whereby increasing to 145 would exceed the maximum allowable for the entire development, or accept their threat to leave it vacant. In addition, please demand a legally binding and enforceable agreement for the plus 55 only. Thank you very much for letting me talk and for extending my time. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just, you made comments, it sounded like you were speaking for all the residents there, or those were your comments?
I was speaking for all the residents when we made a decision to go with the Apples.
Okay, so again, you aren't the spokesperson
No,
for
no, no,
that
no,
neighborhood?
no, I
That's all I
just-
wanted.
No, I'm
Well
not the
said.
spokesperson for anybody. No.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
Next, we have Lynn Alberts.
Okay, so I know there's a 3-minute time limit. I've timed mine, it's 5 minutes and 30 seconds, so if you allow me.
In advance, I move to allow 5 minutes and
Second.
46 seconds.
Okay. All
Good
those-
evening, Mr. Mayor and
All
Council.
those, just 1 second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay,
I don't want to grant
fair enough.
in advance.
Yeah, that makes sense. I understand.
Only parliamentary thing, not,
Okay.
Yeah,
don't take it.
go right ahead.
We're not going to grant
Is the clock
everybody,
starting now?
we're not going to grant everybody an extension of.
Right.
Okay, I understand if you start rambling, but it's written out, so I'm just going to read it.
Perfect.
Fair enough.
Go right ahead.
So, there again, thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Lynn Alberts. I live at 7490 Fur Lane. I would like to recap the history and concessions of Cook Lake Highlands PUD process. The Planning Commission denied the project 3 times, the council denied it 2 times, and allowed the developer to submit their revised PUD a 3rd time prior to the 6-month waiting period. The developer has been granted many exceptions to this project, such as shoreline development regulations and proceeding with utility installations without all signed completed contracts. The current PUD allows 146 units in the development. The revised PUD requesting an increase to 196 units. Why would the city approve a PUD amendment to increase the units for an apartment complex? There are currently 602 rental units within a 1 mile proposed of this complex. Rush Creek has 246 units, Havenwood has 150 units, and St. Therese will have 206 units. The PUD amendment is requesting to go from 100 to 145 unit complex. There are 200 acres that are zoned mixed use on the west side of Maple Hills Road for this type of complex. Why would the council vote to increase the density of this PUD? There have been many compromises to get to this current PUD. The site plan from Pioneer Engineering dated April 6, 2023 shows the maximum units for the city of Corcoran at 166 units, and that's at 10 units per acre. The PUD proposal now is at 196 units, which is over the maximum development. When United Properties was proposing this project to the city, the building was for residents over 62, and they said the demographic ownership was close to 70 years old. Applewood was owner occupied. They also stated that they had done a traffic study for this type of product, and the traffic was considerably lowered. Truck development originally discussed installing a light at Brockton Lane, but decided it was too cost prohibitive. This increase in density only increases the risk of accidents entering and exiting Bass Lake Road. How many cars per day will be dropping their kids off and picking them off at the daycare? The PUD amendment puts the city in a difficult situation. The roads and sewer have already been installed. At the March 23rd, 2023 council meeting, the United Properties stated, quote, "There have been headwinds for the last 2 years. If they recognized that there was a problem, they should have stopped the developing of the lot. They started cutting trees down on the property on July 11th, 2022. They knew far enough advance of that date to stop developing the lot for Applewood. Every feature of Applewood has changed, from ownership to rentals, from plus 62 ownership to over 55 rental, from 100 ownership units to 145 units, rental units. There appears to be no penalties or consequences to change rental units. There is a very interesting precedent that United Properties and Trek are establishing for the future of Corcoran developments. Go ahead, get your PUD approved, then completely change it for the worse, including adding more units to the building without consequences. I would hope the city, if they decide to approve this complex, that they would remain 100 units, which is the number of units that the Applewood was. How would the city regulate and enforce that apartment complex to remain an over 55 age-restricted rental complex in the future? Can the city obtain a legally binding enforceable agreement that if 1 year from now they can't fill it up and they open it up to anybody, would there be any financial consequences to that? I find statement 3 on the staff report interesting. Quote, United Properties indicated that they will not proceed with a co-op on this site. If there's not a buyer for Applewood, I put in Applewood, they said lot, the site would remain vacant indefinitely. This appears to be a threat to the city if they don't approve the amendment. What type of contracts were signed to allow United Properties to walk away from their commitment for this project? Why not let it remain vacant until an appropriate buyer is found? My question is, who currently owns Lot 1, Block 2? I want to emphasize this now. There are other options. There's another option for the apartment complex. At the February 23rd, 2023 City Council work session, there was a second option for Lot 1, Block 2. There was a proposal from Excelsior Group to build 24 to 26 single-family homes. I know this was for rental homes, but that lot could be sold to single-family housing that would not be rental. We just found out that Robert Thomas Homes is going to be the builder for the 19 single-family lots. Why not have them build 20 to 26 homes on Lot 1, Block 2? This would allow the homes built by Robert Thomas to have a beautiful view of Cook Lake.
Lynn, just so you know, we're at 5 minutes, so
Okay,
if you could wrap
okay.
up. Thank you.
I'll go fast. At the recent council meeting, the council discussed reducing the overall density for this development, so there's an option. What additional benefit does the city receive by approving this PUD amendment in whole or part? I would hope the city council decides what is best for the city and not approve a PUD amendment that developers request without any benefits to the city or consequences to the developer. If this was the initial PUD for Cook Lake Highlands being submitted to the city council for a vote, I question if it would be approved. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else, Jess?
We do have someone joining us online.
Yep.
Trevor, ask you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mute.
Yeah.
just real quick, if we could do it where we're not repeating ourselves, some of that information was a repeat from the previous, so it would be nice
Trevor?
if we could,
And maybe if.
anything new to add would be,
And maybe if you just want to.
Fantastic.
You'd want to reinforce what someone previously said, that'd be great, so we can understand that.
Trevor,
Move quickly.
give us just a moment. Trevor, can you, are you speaking? Having a hard
I
time
am,
hearing you.
yeah.
I thought I heard,
Yeah, I heard him.
but like weird, like
Very
over.
quietly.
Didn't sound like it was coming from there.
Yeah, that's turned up. Trevor, I'm not sure what's going on.
Can you hear me? I wonder if
in
it's
the world.
the AirPods.
I feel like it's coming through the TV.
Oh, maybe it's through the.
Oh. Trevor, if you could try talking.
Hello? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, we hear
We
you.
can hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, this is Trevor Sherber here at 23240 County Road 30. And I just wanted to explain why we needed another extension.
oh, that's a different, That's the next subject, folks.
Yeah, well, we have.
Oh, it is.
Public comment opportunity for all of this, but I think since it's your project, we can have you speak, after, staff summarizes and if there's any public comments, we'd do that now from anyone else. And then
Okay.
for you, we'd recognize you. So I'll make a note of that and we'll recognize you at the end or in the middle of 8B if that works.
Okay, okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
At this time, Mayor and Council, no one else is raising their hand.
Okay. And then we will,
Can I ask
yeah.
a question before we start the discussion? Are we getting feedback? Okay.
Seems,
Pulling it
there we
in.
go.
I just want clarification of discussion. And this is more a themes question. I'm glad you're here. In a process like this where somebody comes before us with a new application, is it, I just need clarification. It seems to me like you have to look at the application on its own and disregard any, just because they had 5 applications before. This is a new application. You can't say, but I'll ask that question too. It has to be on a standalone basis, and you can't, and I'm asking because this conversation went sideways before. A council will be on shaky grounds if they say, you've been here 5 times already. We're gonna say no because we're gonna have an artificial barrier of if you change your mind six times, then your project can't get approved. I just wanna make sure that we stay on firm legal grounds when it comes to why we can deny a PUD. And then my other question is, isn't this just another PUD? What's the difference? I know we're changing a PUD. In and of itself, isn't it just a PUD?
Good questions, Councilmember Bottom, members of council. Take the first question first. Yeah, I think the simplest way to think about that is you evaluate the application, not the applicant, right? So the context as far as how many times it's come forward and things like that, while relevant to considerations that you're aware of that have come forth in the past, doesn't change how you view the application itself anew, as though it's the first application you received or the 50th. It doesn't really matter. You still apply the same standards in a judicial-like manner. To answer the second part of that, yeah, so can you, well, let me back up. Can you restate the second part of your question? I want to make sure.
Well, this is a PUD amendment, but technically, isn't it just a PUD? So like, I know they're just changing some things from the first PUD, but it's just a new PUD. Doesn't it have the same standard of a PUD? A PUD amendment has the same standard of a PUD.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
In terms of discretion, you mean?
yes.
So we would have the same discretion on the amendment
As
as we did when we originally decided to approve or reject.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Okay, that's it.
Okay. Great. And we'll go into 6A, or 8A, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. So we've already heard the background. I want to clarify a couple things, though. With the original PUD preliminary plat and plan, it was 19 single-family homes, a daycare, a 32-unit memory care facility, and a 100-unit senior co-op. But recall, when they came back with the final plat and final PUD, they did modify that to a 27-unit memory care facility. Next slide. So tonight, the applicant is requesting 3 changes to the approved PUD. One is an increased impervious surface coverage. 2 is to increase the memory care units from 27 to 32, which is consistent with the preliminary. And 3, to change the 100-unit senior co-op to a 145-unit senior apartment. No change to the building footprint for either of these proposed changes to those residential multifamily buildings. Next slide. So again, this image, a little hard to see that left image, I guess, on this screen, but the point of it is the plan is exactly the same from a site plan perspective, but certainly there's nuance in the changes that are happening within the building. So I'll talk about that in the next slide. The first issue is the increased impervious surface of coverage from 39 to 39.8%. The change is, as New Horizons formally became the buyer of the daycare site, their particular program has some impervious materials under the playground that weren't incorporated into the initial calculations. Very minor change to the total impervious surface calc. They've provided revised calculations. We've reviewed this with the watershed, city engineer in Maple Grove. The ponds that are already designed and approved are adequate to handle that minor increase, and there's no change to the joint powers agreement. Staff finds this to be a very minor tweak and does not require any changes to any of the agreements that are in place. Next slide. The memory care units, again, that's directly west of the daycare facility. The final approval changed from 32 to 27 units, and the applicant has indicated in their narrative that that was simply an error from the architect. There's no change to the footprint, and so they're requesting that it be 32 units again. Next slide. The senior building was approved as a 100-unit senior co-op, which is an ownership facility. The applicant is now requesting approval for a 145-unit senior apartment. There is no change to the building footprint. There is no significant change to the building elevations, although I would note that is the applicant's comment. We haven't seen specific building elevations because they wanted to wait to see how the meeting went, but they would still be required to comply. They are doing this in some other cities, they say, and that really the elevations don't need to change with the change in the units inside the building. And the builder is the same, the United Properties for both the co-op and now this proposal. The new plan shows 240 parking stalls where the code requires 218 for this apartment complex. And the reason there's no change to the site plan or the impervious surface is all of the additional parking is being added underground. And it does increase the number of units. As part of the review, the engineering team had their traffic engineer review it, who has indicated that the street system is adequate for these additional units and no improvements are required. Next slide. So this was a little hard, I think, to see in the packet, so I wanted to put it up on the screen. The yellow area kind of shows that underground parking that's being added to add the additional stalls from the previous plan. Next slide.
When you say it's being added, are they removing features that were inside that area to make those stalls, or?
No, so
Nothing.
the left side is the garage plan, and so really they're just adding that upper, or where that says 40 stalls, they're adding additional
yellow.
stalls in that area and over on that sort of angled piece. So it was always just garage area, a little bit of mechanical storage, but they didn't remove anything. They're just digging, sort of burrowing under the parking lot that was planned. Next slide. So as we just discussed, the council has discretion in approving PUD amendments. A couple things that I had questions about after the packet went out that I want to clarify. Again, this amendment has no physical change to any of the footprints on any of the portions of this development. The plan density does remain consistent with the comprehensive plan. The density is required to be 8 to 10 units per net acre. The approved plan is 9 units per acre, and the proposed plan is 9.9. As one of the residents mentioned, doesn't seem to match what's in the engineer's materials. And if you will recall the discussion while we were trying to get this project to meet density, one of the things that the developer agreed to do in the memory care, and remember, memory care is for folks with dementia, one of the things that they agreed to do was put kitchens in those memory care units, because you need to have a kitchen to be considered a unit under the Met Council's requirements. They did not want to do that because you can imagine some of the safety issues, but they agreed to do that and would work with the facility manager to basically put the equipment in there but not connect them. So you couldn't turn on the stove, but it would be built, it would be a cost they were willing to do. With this change, they would no longer put the kitchens in those units, and so those units no longer count as units under the Met Council formula for density. So, factually, that is true. It sounds a little confusing because of the increased units, but actually is frankly more accurately reflecting units under the traditional standard. So it is consistent with the density as proposed. Another question was, as council is aware, cities have the statutory right to collect park dedication as part of a final plat only. The question was, if the council did approve this project, there's no change to the plat's recorded, do we have a way to collect additional park dedication fees for the additional units? And the answer is yes, because when we approved the PUD, we negotiated, remember, accepting Outlot A as Outlot C as park dedication in exchange for the park dedication normally due on the 19 single-family lots. And so the park dedication requirements were included in that PUD ordinance, or PUD resolution, pardon me. And so in consultation with the city attorney, we believe you can require the additional park dedication fees based on the fees that were in place at the time of the final plat, because the final plat's what triggers our ability to collect it. So in this case, if you chose to move forward and approve it, you could collect an additional $139,000 in park dedication fees for the additional units. Next slide. We have prepared a resolution approving the planned unit development. You have a revised resolution on your desk that reflects that park dedication change, should you so choose. However, there are 3 requests, and so if the council does not support one or more of the requests, you should provide findings of fact for denial and direct staff to bring the resolution back to the May 11th council meeting for adoption. And so I am only aware of one letter that came in. I've only seen one, and you have a copy of that. It sounds like that is the one letter, so that is incorporated into the public record from a resident. And I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Mayor. I know the applicant is here and prepared to answer questions and potentially, if allowed, present some information.
Sounds good. Any questions initially for Kendra?
Just to make sure I don't go into the dementia type deal, the 27,
Are you implying you're not?
I'm doing my
was
best
waiting for
to
a
stay
joke.
on the fence, John.
You got me good last.
I know I did. I know, and I can get you good again. Just watch yourself. Just kidding. So we're going 27 to 32 in the memory care because we're not putting kitchens in.
Not exactly. 2 separate things.
I've lost it, guys.
We're going 27 to 32 because 27, according to the applicant, was an error on their, from their architect.
But now they're not gonna be
And
counted
then-
as a unit,
And
as
then
a dwelling,
separately,
because they don't have kitchens.
yes, but then
Or-
separately, that's 2 different items, but they are related.
Okay,
So
and
does
then from 100 to 145.
5.
The one gentleman spoke eloquently about the traffic was going to be reduced with everything that was there. The neighborhood agreed to everything that was there, and the one thing that we talked about last time was we were gonna add the 3 acres out front. Now that's gone again. The memory care was gone, but now it's back. it's a who's on first, what's on second kind of deal. It's driving me absolutely nutty with everything that's gone on and everything has changed. I'd still rather see this, not an amendment, but a PUD. I mean, it's a resubmit in my mind, even though you guys have all said it's not a resubmit.
No, we
it's
said
a
it is.
change.
It is treated as a brand-new PUD. That means that anything.
We're talking
the
an
whole
amendment
thing is
right
on
now.
the table. When you amend a PUD.
So
The whole thing is on the table.
Deal.
Your
Okay.
discussion is open,
Got it.
Yes.
but things
I'll
you've
be quiet.
approved in the past aren't really on the table.
Well, we already approved, so we already approved the
I
other
understand.
PUD.
Jeremy?
I'm okay.
I have a follow-up
Thanks.
question to Dean's question on the conversion of the units from units to no longer being units. Does that violate the original PUD? Did we have a condition in there that required there to be kitchens? Is that a fourth change?
Thank you.
I don't think so. Here's why. Because the building itself isn't changing, and we talked about this at the time, that it was dementia, and we were putting those in so we didn't re-guide the property. So it's still the same building, the same 32 units. We just won't have unplugged stoves in the units.
Can I ask a follow-up?
But council can certainly, excuse me.
No, no, good.
I was gonna say, council could certainly find differently. Staff believes it is not a fourth change for those reasons.
A follow-up to that question, what was on my mind. You can't approve, they can't make that change if you do not approve the change to Applewood, though, right? Because they won't meet the density.
Correct.
Okay.
Say that again? It wouldn't.
The kitchens would have to stay if you
Because they
decided
downgrade.
not to approve the Applewood amendment.
That's what you're saying. Or at least it wouldn't be certain that that's the case.
Well, they'd meet below the minimum density.
If it was just 100 units
Yeah.
Correct.
and those weren't counting. Yeah, I guess it'd be interesting to know where that cutoff would be in terms of units. But yeah, that's what you're saying.
Usually, no, sorry.
Has the memory care already been platted and paid its park dedication fee for having units?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The memory care has paid their park dedication, but memory care pays as if it's a commercial use. It's a convoluted formula, but they have paid their park dedication. It's,
Did we do it by acre at that time, or did we do that by
yes.
parcel?
So how it is for the, I'll just explain it, it's kind of complicated, it's probably easier. So for memory care, park dedication is the number of units from the memory care as a percentage of units within the development. So we sort of count them like units. So it is, I'll find it, I think it's 18% of the units in the project. And then you take that percentage, times the acreage of the entire project, times the commercial fee. So, you see in the revised resolution, the amount of park dedication due for the memory care, if this project were approved as requested by the applicant, goes down from $17,000 in park dedication to $15,000 in park dedication, because its percentage is smaller. Make sense?
While we're going down that rabbit hole, if they back out, we get that money plus whatever the new plan is if the memory care backs out again?
Here's what I would say. If the memory care did not proceed, or there was a change to the memory care, they'd have to come back to you. And I think we'd have the same conversation about park dedication we're having now. at
Do we
that.
refund that money, or does that our money and then we?
We don't refund any
revisit?
money.
Thank you. I'm as frustrated, and I'll speak more frustrated than anybody and stuff about these changes and all of these things happening.
What?
I don't know.
Why don't you make a motion?
I'm almost there, Jen. The other thing that I wanted to know too is, We went from 62 to 55. What can we put, meat and potatoes, that says it's a 55 and older forever? I'm, there's a significant traffic change, and I showed no disrespect to whoever did the traffic deals, but there's going to be less traffic with 62 and older and 55 and older. There's gonna be less traffic 62, way more traffic in 55. I'm sorry, nobody can convince me otherwise. So I'm asking, what contracts are there that says it's 55 and older? And then how do we know and how do we believe the applicant that it's gonna be kept 55 and older? We've been, the previous council, everybody has been so much, and it was a really neat addition to our city, the way it was originally proposed. The buy-in from the neighborhood and such. The other thing I'm disappointed is the conversation was, you, Beth, excuse me, but you said you were gonna talk to the neighbors about all these changes.
I did.
Doesn't sound like it went over very well, so I'm not ready,
We'll let
I'm not
you-
ready
we'll let you
yet,
guys
I'm
speak.
not done. We will pay just as much attention listening to you as I paid attention to the neighbors that are here tonight. But I am extremely frustrated. Took 5.5 weeks to get a damn sign down from a previous deal. And you guys said you'd get it down really fast. Took 5.5 weeks. And that's the Applewood sign that spent the whole winter up, and we knew about this a long time ago. That sign should have came down. Something as simple as the sign we can't even remove. How do I believe that this is what's gonna happen going forward? I'll back off. I'll shut up now. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, there were actually a couple of questions in that
I'm sure there was, but
that I'd like to answer.
That'd be great.
The draft resolution talks about a 145-unit senior apartment. It uses that language because our code defines senior, and senior under our code is 55 plus. The ITE manual, to the best of my knowledge, does not distinguish between 55 and 62 in terms of trips. They do distinguish between market rate and senior, or market and senior housing. But I believe, and the traffic engineer's not here, and I don't know if Kevin or Steve can correct me, but I don't believe they distinguish between 55 and 62. Our code does not.
okay.
So how we ensure that it stays senior is because it says it in that resolution. So they could not change, if you approved this as a senior apartment, that is what it is, unless they came back to the council and asked for another PUD amendment to change that senior apartment to a market rate apartment. And who knows, in 40 years, that could happen, right? But for now, the request in front of you is to change that. The legal book you have is this resolution that says senior housing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
can I make a motion?
Sure. Well, actually, I think the applicant does want to speak, so we
okay.
should probably let them do that first.
Can I ask a question of what you just said?
Yeah.
When you say it says it as senior, where does it say it as senior? I see where it says age restricted.
My follow-up on that would be, if we can do it in a resolution by 55, could we not designate 62? Keep it the same as the original proposal in terms of the age?
Yeah, you're right. It should say senior, not age restricted. I'm not sure. We could change that if you proceeded. That would be a good change to say senior apartment in lieu of age restricted on item 4 in the draft resolution. And for D to change multifamily to senior, if you were to proceed.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, anyone else ahead of the applicant speaking? No, I think you guys would like to come on up.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, Alex Hall with United Properties. I just, before, my intent really was to jump in and talk about the Amira as an option here, but I would like to talk a little bit about the Applewood and in the efforts that we made really over a year period, trying to get that started. And I think it's important, if we could actually go back, I think it's the second slide, or maybe it's the next slide that talks about, yeah, one before that, please. The one before that.
Oh, sorry.
Perfect, thank you. When we came here a little over a year ago and got approval for the Applewood, we were very clear that this was a HUD-insured deal and that we've got to pre-sell 60% of the homes. I don't have the ability to start a community until we reach that 60% hurdle. And in this case, we had 100 homes. That means we'd have to sell 60 of these things before we got the green light from HUD that we're able to start. We started marketing this in February of '22 and decided formally in February of '23 that we weren't going to pursue the Applewood any further.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you say you were very clear that this was a HUD deal and you needed to sell 60% of your homes before you started building, I don't recall that at all. When was that clear to us?
We did talk about
Yeah, we'd have to go back. That's the only way co-ops get built, are HUD-insured
Okay.
40-year.
I think it was mentioned, but I
yeah.
think my recollection and interpretation serves me. It was more, that was the selling point of that. It's kind of why you felt confident about it at the time, perhaps, that the market would demand it because they have to have that. So I think it was brought up, but maybe not in the same context.
Okay.
Yeah, and I apologize if certainly if we weren't clear on that. When I say, I made it clear, I don't mean to say that everyone, and that was a long time ago. But my point is, we spent a year trying to market this community. We've got $500,000 in pursuit costs into this that we're not gonna recover. It became very apparent that 110 reservations, and it's important to point out that a reservation, all that is a $500 deposit. Someone has given us $500, they can get the $500 back anytime they want. It's just holding their place in line for when we eventually convert to sales, that they'd be able to pick a home. And for every couple, mid last year, for every couple new reservations, we'd lose a couple reservations on the back end. And on the surface, it sounds like 100 reservations or 110 reservations for 100 homes is a pretty good coverage, but the reality is you only convert about 30% of reservations to sales. So we would have needed about 200 reservations to kind of hit that 60% pre-sale. We reached out to all of the reservation holders back in October, contacted them, all of those potential buyers, and found that maybe we'd have 20 buyers, 25 at best, that were ready to buy. So we really weren't close to that 60% pre-sale, and it didn't make sense to continue to market this, spend money, and have people hold on that, reservation holders hold on that need to make other decisions. And so.
If I may, quick, again,
Yes.
again, the thing that frustrates me is y'all said this is gonna be no problem. It is the way, it is everything. I don't know exactly what was said, but we've got recordings. This is the cat's meow for the reservations, the people interested. You couldn't get it built fast enough. We had to hurry up and give temporary grants and permits to do all the infrastructure and everything because we needed it done so we could break ground in the spring. I mean, that's what all of the things that were said back in October, November when we extended this. I'm having a hard time still listening to what y'all are saying, so I'm being above board.
I think it's important, please, to note that it's not just Applewood that we were doing that for. We were doing that for the single family that are gonna start.
Well, I'm grossly aware,
Yeah, and the
everything
daycare that's
was,
starting,
it
and,
was
you know,
blessed, it was everything,
Yeah.
everything was great. And then you surprised us by coming back saying, everything went to heck. We wanna add these 3 acres, we wanna do these things, I'm having a problem, so, thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. You know, it certainly is frustrating for us that we weren't able to move forward with it. It's not a Corcoran issue. We've had to pivot in a location in Blaine, in Prior Lake, in Lake Elmo. So it's just something we've experienced over the last, I'd say, couple of years here. And I think the next slide really speaks to a little bit on the housing market. What's happened here? You know, when we started marketing this, interest rates were 3.5%. You know, there's 6.5% today. You've seen a drop of almost 38% in housing activities. What you're asking people to do is essentially move out of a home that may have a sub 4% mortgage, and unfortunately, we're not immune from the higher interest rates, and move into a community with higher rates. You know, the bottom line is that we saw a huge drop off in seniors that were interested in for sale product. What we found is really what they're looking for are rental options, and that happens to be our Amira product here. But what I want to make clear is that you know, we're not, you know, when I hear that we've backed out of obligations, or that there should be penalties, or that we've been dishonest, or we're threatening. That's just not the case. I mean, this one, we put a lot of effort into this. We held monthly meetings for a year, and we couldn't get it across the finish line. And that's not something that we enjoy doing. It's certainly cost the company a lot of money. And what we're proposing today is an alternative. And if that alternative is something that you feel is not a good fit, we're not making any threats. We don't own the land. You know, we've got a purchase agreement with Beth, and it's a very typical purchase agreement that gives us a year, sometimes longer, to try to get the project started. And we really can't purchase the land until we get those pre-sales and we're able to get started. So that's just a little history on this. We're going through it right now in Lake Elmo. I had a 105-unit co-op there that we're just finishing pivoting that to our Amira product. So again, it's not a Corcoran issue. It's something that we're just experiencing across the Twin Cities here. So I'll spend a few minutes just talking about the Amira. We can walk through that, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you have. The Amira product, we started that, actually our first Amira we opened in Roseville, right in the middle of the pandemic, as a matter of fact, and we were able to lease that up 100% during the pandemic. We opened our second one. This is actually a picture of the Roseville one. We opened our second Amira in Bloomington last spring, and that actually leased up. That was about 140 units. That leased up in 6 months. Again, kind of testament to the demand we're seeing for a senior, and it's a very similar senior, if not the same senior, that we're targeting for the Applewood. What we found is they're looking for the flexibility and the rental option as opposed to buying. If they're gonna sell their house, they don't necessarily want to put that equity back into a for-sale product. And I think that's the niche this is serving. As far as average age and the concern over traffic, what we've found over the 3 that we have now, the average age tends to be about 70 years old. So about a year or 2 less than a typical Applewood. Next slide. So the next few slides will just be graphics of existing. This one is Applewood Point of Bloomington. It's just south of 494, just north of Normandale Lakes. Amira, I'm sorry, what did I say, Applewood? I got Applewood on the brain. Okay, the next one, this was our original Roseville community. All of the common areas that we have in the current Applewood remain. You know, I think that's the fitness center, the great room, the common area library, all of the exterior features that we had planned for the Applewood, which was the gazebo and the bocce ball, all those stay the same. Next slide, some interior shots of Bloomington. Really the big change from the size of the homes, the homes in the Applewood were larger. So the for sale homes were a little over a 1,500 square foot home. And what we're looking at now is a little wider range. So everything from a 650 square foot studio on up to a 1,600 square foot 3-bedroom. Next slide, this is just the entryway, again, taking a look at the finishes, very comparable, if not, you know, very, very nicely, you know, decorated, very similar, again, to what you'd find if you went into an Applewood. So the Amira Corcoran here, this slide looks familiar because essentially that's the Applewood. And all we're doing, and I think it was pretty clear in the presentation, but all we're proposing is to keep the same footprint. And so we're not looking at changing the footprint, we're not increasing the height. The materials on the exterior are remaining the same, windows are remaining the same. I think the only thing you'd see, because we're essentially reprogramming the building from a 1,500 square foot home to an average 1,100 square foot rental home. And that's where you get the increased density from the previously proposed 100 homes to the 145 homes. Looking from west to east here, again, that surface parking lot doesn't change. If anything, all you're gonna see are a few additional decks reflecting the additional stacks of homes that are gonna be added. But as far as materials and things, any of the exterior landscaping, the exterior amenities do not change.
Can I ask you, you said
Yes.
the one's in Bloomington, where's the other one?
So the other one
Roseville.
is Minnetonka.
Oh.
So the first one was Roseville.
Okay.
And then our second community is Bloomington, just north of Normandale Lakes. And then the third one is scheduled to open in June. That's 180 units. That's right near Carlson Towers. And that one is, it's gonna open in June. That one is almost 70% pre-leased.
Do you know the address of the Roseville one?
I don't, it's right across from the city hall, right across from the fire department. So I can certainly get you that.
That's fine, I can Google it,
Yeah.
thanks.
Alice, could you talk about the traffic that you talked with the neighbors at the neighborhood meeting, yesterday, the traffic counts that you?
Yeah, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yep, that is actually coming up. So really, the big change that we talked about here takes place underground, and that is pushing the parking out beyond the building envelope, and we've done that at other communities. You can see that in the yellow. And so what we have, I believe, is about 236 stalls. That would be a 1.6 per home ratio, which is a little bit higher than our other three Amiras. Those are around 1.5. You have more single, because of the smaller units, you have more singles coming into an Amira versus an Applewood Point. Next slide is just demographics. Again, looking at, you know, you've had almost 100% increase in the 70-plus demographic across the 7 metro Twin Cities here. That's going to double again. I think it's going to add another close to 380,000 seniors 70-plus over the next 20 years. And then the next slide is just taking a national look here. So this is a 65-plus demographic. Again, yes, it's a 55-plus community, but we don't get 55-year-olds. So this is looking at the 65 plus. You're looking at an increase of about 30% nationally, or 17 million. I can't read from here, but I believe that's what it is, over the 10-year period, 2020 through 2030. And you can just see that that demographic continues to grow. So as these seniors look to move out of single-family homes, it's, you know, the options they're looking for are, and they do often want to be in communities with other seniors, either an Amira-type product or an Applewood-type product. Typically, they don't want to be in a market rate environment. Next slide. Again, some of the community benefits, you know, serving residents that have lived in and around the community. It promotes housing turnover because seniors will sell their homes. Increases the tax base, and again, this is an independent senior. It's not no services, so it's not food service. There's no medical. Again, it's an independent senior that's going to be supporting the local retail as well as the restaurants. And then finally, traffic is the final slide here. And it is important to point out that the majority of our seniors either have flexible schedules or they are retired. So they are avoiding peak traffic time. And we just completed, we're proceeding with pursuing an Amira down in Victoria, just west of Excelsior. And we just completed, that's 146 units. We just completed a traffic study down there 2 months ago that indicated 29 peak AM and then the 36 peak PM for 147 units. And it's important to point out that the 29 peak, it's not 29 people leaving, it's 29 total leaving and coming back. So you'd be looking at something similar in the morning of 15 people heading out, another 14 coming back, kind of a similar ratio in the afternoon. And it's worth pointing out that the additional 45 homes account for essentially nine of the peak AM and 11 of the peak PM is what that increase in density accounts for as far as these trips. And so with that, that's what I have. Again, I just wanted to kind of clarify and emphasize, we certainly feel bad about the Applewood. It's not the only one, and in fact, we've built 18 of these, and it's been a great success for us going back to 2004. It used to be that we could pre-sell these things in a year. And that is just not the environment. We've kind of learned the hard way over the last 18 months. And we're currently only pursuing one Applewood and really focusing on the Amira product right now. And with that, I just want to thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the applicant? We're good. I think we'll just go into council discussion. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone have anything they want to start us off with? John, you had a potential.
Should we deal with the easy parts first?
Sure.
Or potential easy parts
Of the
first?
3 items?
Of the 3 items. So, looking at the draft resolution, does anybody want to have discussion related to the updates to the daycare and the impervious surface level change from 39 to 39.8%?
Well, can I don't know if that's necessary.
I don't think I have a concern with it. I would be interested to see if anybody else has a concern with it.
I don't have a problem with the impervious.
No, it barely changes anything.
Nothing here.
Same with the second one, which was the 27 to 32 units.
My only concern with that is the removal of the kitchen, because we did intend for that to help us hit our density target with the project. So I'm concerned that there's a bit of a bait and switch relative to the original PUD, where those units were counted to get to the target density level, and now it's being removed so they can stay within a previously approved range. So I feel like that is not a desirable change from the
Yeah.
city's perspective.
If they had kitchen units, so you're saying without kitchen units, they hit this 9.9 units per acre.
Correct.
If they had kitchens, they'd be.
It'd be over.
10.
Right.
Right.
And that's kind of, there's two parts, correct me if I'm wrong, Kendra, the change in and of itself and the kitchen item, kind of separate. Yeah, okay.
In my mind.
Yeah, and that's
separate.
how I thought of it as well. I think that depending on preliminary or at what stage, it was 27 in some iterations and 32 in others in the same footprint.
I think this is a giant flex on a PUD.
What do you mean?
So the good thing, I think the good thing for our town is, like, we're not positioned financially where we have to build homes. There's no desperation that we have to build homes. And, like, there's a lot of economic uncertainty, but I just don't think we have to lower our standards because we have economic certainty. I actually like the applicants, and I like the presentation. But this is way off. It's not a good fit. I would make a motion that we deny the application.
Okay. And actually, before that, I think if we wanted to go down that route, staff's recommendation would be to give direction to staff to come back with something.
Yes, but it would be good to have some sense of
right.
the
Yep.
findings so that we could bring back a resolution.
Okay. So I don't know if you want to maybe expound on that a little bit on what we're thinking would be the reasoning behind it. And then have staff come back on the,
I feel like it puts us over the density target. I think it's a technicality to try to change the memory care to stay under the number of units that's permitted based on the guidance.
Beth. Yeah, sure. Briefly, please.
The change to the memory care just sort of happened, it wasn't bait and switch here. I mean, we really, we had 32 units approved. And, I'm so disappointed that you feel that it's a major change in the PUD amendment. I mean, that it's a major change in the PUD. I think we're here tonight, and we've talked to staff, and we've come to you in a work session, and we asked for direction. And we did ask about this, so we aren't just bringing this up tonight. It's something that we've actually come to you in a work session and asked for your feedback, and I do believe we got some feedback on the 145 units and the senior. And what I heard at that work session and what we were told is that you don't want rental as far as the single family that we brought. That we did not want single family rental, but you would consider senior, 145 units of senior apartments. And I think this is the first project ever in Corcoran that has mixes of uses, and maybe that's my fault for trying to work within the mixed use or the mixed residential zoning or guiding that you have put on this property. Maybe I should have done what John Rask did with MI Homes and just recalibrated it and said, we just want single family. We don't want to develop this according to the guide plan and just change it to low density. I really came with this project as a mixed use, trying to work with that mixed use. It's really the first one that's been done here. And so I do understand your frustration. I'm just as frustrated. I am just as frustrated with the change in the market and the challenge of working with that. That's just a reality. We have to do that, and it's gonna be something else down the road. I mean, product changes on a regular basis. You'll see the builders come in, a national builder, I'm guessing with these large projects that they come in with PUD amendments on a regular basis because the market and the product and the demand has changed. And so that's what we're doing here tonight, is just asking you, based on what you've told us that you would consider for what we don't think, and I understand why staff does not think. We've had conversations with staff, we've consulted with them, and the fact that the buildings stay the same, that the people that are using them stay the same. We're not changing a senior to a market rate. We're not asking for that because you said no to that. And so the fact that seniors are changing the way that they want to either purchase or not purchase. The Chastic property is a perfect example. I was before you, and the owner of the Chastic property wants to stay in the community, and she will not be buying another home. She'll go to the independent senior on what was the city's property at St. Therese. So it's a great opportunity for her to have that variety of product, because she doesn't want to buy another home. And that's really, from what United Properties has said, that's really common. So we're trying to meet the market, we're trying to address that. And 10 units to an acre, whether there's kitchens stubbed in or not, they really were just going to, with conversations that we had with staff, they were really just going to rough them in. And that was gonna be fine, because the pipes were there and everything was there. So if you're thinking that's a major change, please reconsider that, because I don't think so. We are still serving the people that we originally designed that product to serve. And I'd like you to consider that. And I have met with the neighbors. I have several neighbors that are very supportive. We're hearing from 2 right now, and maybe there's 3 here, maybe there's more. But I do have supportive neighbors. And I'm sorry, they're not here tonight. We just did not feel that, I guess, that they needed to counter the strong voices against it. So I'm sorry that the neighbors don't like what is happening, but we did follow through, and we brought in a really solid builder. We're very excited about that. In a market like this, it's not easy to get 19 lots sold to one builder and get going. So please reconsider your thoughts and your feelings about the fact that this is significant. We really feel that we're staying in our lane, and we feel strongly about that, and we're hopeful that we're serving the same people that we intended from the very beginning. So thank you for hearing.
I guess my issue isn't so much with the 27 to 32, because I feel like that was discussed before anything about the kitchens were discussed.
We always talked about the kitchens. We were
No,
always.
right,
playing
I mean,
game
about,
with the kitchens.
about not having them in. The discrepancy between 27 and 32.
Right.
I feel like, was that always tied to the kitchen
They
aspect?
we talked about, that was in the first staff report. We said, in order to get to the density, which we need to get to in that 8 to 10, we have to have kitchen stubs in here to meet the definition of the
Right.
unit. So
I'm-
rather than doing a bigger apartment, you were gonna fake the kitchen.
Right, I'm just saying, the initial change back and forth between 27 and 32, I think was a little bit of a
Yeah.
separate issue.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm not as concerned with that, other than the aspect, kind of what you were saying, Jeremy, is that now with the current proposal, we're right up on the top end of the range for density, and now we have these units that we're not counting because they're technically not gonna be counted as units due to the lack of the kitchen. So I guess I would maybe like to see what these numbers look like to get to a lower number within the range of the 8 to 10, unit-wise for the Amira building.
So I
when
can-
we first did the memory care, the reason that we did put the kitchens in is
Mhm.
because we needed to try to meet, we were under the density.
Right.
We weren't meeting the
Mhm.
mixed residential density, and so that's why we did that. And that was the initial reason for putting those kitchens in. And I spoke with Met Council, and it was Met Council that we had to work with. So that was the only reason, is we were just under our, and we didn't want to do a comp plan amendment.
Right.
In order to meet the density.
Yep.
We have 19 single-family lots and one daycare and a memory care and an apartment building that, it's just, we were just trying to meet the density.
No,
And that was the
understand
one
that.
way we could do it.
Yep, I understand that.
Yeah, and memory cares typically aren't considered in other communities, so, but Met Council said this is how we could make it, help with the density problem, under density problem that we have.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm more interested in seeing the number for the apartment, potential apartment building. It's the 145 is the proposal, and that gets us to almost the very upper limit, and not counting those pseudo units of the
32.
Yeah. So I think if I were able to get to supporting it, I would want to see it at a lower density than right at the upper limit.
If I may, I think
Yeah.
I've calmed down. Another option too is we've already intruded on the shoreline and such. Is there a way we can do this with one less story and it meets the 100 units that was originally planned for this, and we keep everything else the same, if everybody catches my drift? Instead of growing the same building, which is already obtruse and obnoxious and everything else, we've all had those conversations on size and along a beautiful lake. We take a story off it. Is that an option?
Is that for Kendra?
I'm just
So
asking.
I think I can bring back I'll double check the density ranges, how many units are permitted, the low end and the top end, which is, I think, is Mr. Mayor's question, so that you get a sense of where those density ranges are. And certainly, I mean, to fit within the density range, taking off a story is theoretically something that could happen to fall within that permitted range. I don't have the numbers right in front of me on what
Yeah,
those
I'm.
numbers are, but that's something they could do.
I-
It's whether it's viable.
I did hear or listen to.
99.
What's
It'd be
that?
99 unit.
Why?
The top floor might have more than the first
110.
floor, depending on where the
Take
amenities
the
are.
lop off.
Well, it's 104.
35. You'd have to take 35 off, so it'd be 110.
Okay.
3/4 of
That's what you're saying.
125.
That's what you're saying.
110. That's saying you can't do it though, right? Okay.
Does St. Therese have 4 stories?
They do, but they're in a downtown area with unlimited height requirements. Different zoning.
I'm
Just throwing
throwing
it
stuff
out.
out there. The residents that are here made the suggestion of keeping the same quantity of dwellings and stuff, and I do not want to discount the number of residents in the memory care, even though I visit a number of memory cares many times as a helper and those kind of things. The traffic going into that memory care and such, the people taking care of those folks, there's traffic counts there. The traffic counts and stuff on the other stuff, listening to the two folks that presented, keeping it at the same number of units, the cost to build it would be less if you only go 2 stories, and would change things up. But again, I know we're asking, we want everything we can get, and that's what they're here to get, is everything they can get.
And I think that's why I'd like to
A little bit
see
of
those
disagreement
numbers.
with that.
Gotcha. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're all right.
I think that's why I'd like to see those numbers to see what, what range we're even looking at, what that would mean.
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, I think it's 144 to 180, but I'd like to,
Sounds good.
I'm doing that on the fly,
Yeah.
so it makes me nervous to do that.
144 to 180.
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, with the homes?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
How long is the initial approval that we granted last year valid for, before it would lapse for that parcel? Is that a 1 year, 2 year?
They have 1 year to begin the project, and I guess I'd look to John in terms of, to confirm this, but I believe they've begun the project. So,
So now it's unlimited? It would stay a valid thing to proceed with in 5 years potentially, if market conditions changed and it was now commercially viable.
There's a project completion date in the development contract, and some contemplated remedies that way.
Okay.
yeah, the completion dates are for public improvements. We don't specifically have a completion date for building completion. And in my experience, that's not typical. Cities
Yeah.
understand that things phase with the market.
Mhm.
What we're focused on is the completion date for the public improvements.
I would be okay, like I said in the work session, with accommodating the change in the market by allowing them to change from 100 unit co-op to 100 unit rental
55 plus.
at the same 55 plus or 62 plus
That's,
level.
before I forget, can I
Please.
add in here? Would we be able to implement something, does it have to be the 55 plus that could we keep that same as originally proposed 62 plus?
I'll look to the city attorney. Our code defines senior as 55. We don't define anything in our code, but
Yeah, there wouldn't be any basis in code or authority from that would help you
Okay.
out there. The condition itself, you could make it compliant with the senior requirement, which would be a 55 standard.
Gotcha.
And we can
Okay.
certainly build that into the resolution.
Yeah, I think we definitely at least want the senior designation in there.
I think there's a lot of value in the original proposal and that it adds a different type of housing into the city, still allows home ownership, has a potentially less negative impact on surrounding property value by not being a rental. So I prefer to see it get developed as that when the market allows it to, but I understand extended circumstances. I'd be okay allowing rental, but I don't see a compelling advantage to the city to allowing the overall number of units to increase. So if we're looking at the benefit between what we've already approved and what we're being asked to approve, I don't see a reason to allow the flexibility beyond the first two items that we had discussed around.
So really
impermeable.
beyond the first two items and part of that third item. Yes, sir. Gotcha. Any thoughts on that? Anyone?
I'm kind of in a weird position because I didn't vote for the PUD.
True.
So to vote for the amendment to a PUD I didn't vote for is a weird thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess maybe my indication would be to direct staff to follow up on a few of those things, and we table this to at least the May 11th meeting, but potentially, we do have that 60-day extension if we needed that as well. Potentially do that, and we could also give feedback on, or have staff work on a resolution for denial as well in that time, so we could come back with both resolutions at a future meeting.
Are there specific things that you'd want?
Can a denial be, can it be as simple as the exchange of flexibility on the code? Or what the town receives for flexibility on the code is not enough?
It's a Kendra question.
think so? Yeah, I think so. I mean, the PUD benefit They're not providing the public benefit or the
Yeah.
PUD benefit that you're expecting.
That would be what I would.
So I think that would be the basis, and we'd want to come back in the future with both resolutions.
So, just so I'm clear, are we looking for a resolution, bringing back the same resolution for approval, and the denial is for denial of all three? Or do we want two denial resolutions, one that approves the first and just denies?
I
first
think
two and
we have
denies
general
the
buy-in on the
third?
first two items, correct?
Maybe you just want to take the difficult one off the table
What do you mean?
and just approve the one,
You'd like an approval on the first two?
I mean.
That would be helpful.
We just don't have a viable project if you cut the floors off and you cut the, it's not, it won't happen, so we're just gonna.
At anything,
Yeah.
at anything less than the 145 units?
Whatever, I mean, I don't know, it's gonna, I don't know what else to say other
We
than,
couldn't pencil out
no,
three
I mean,
stories, so I'm just trying to save everyone. I
Yeah.
appreciate the effort and the discussion, but I don't want you to go through a lot of work with staff because we know we're not gonna pursue that, so.
At anything less than 145?
Correct.
yeah,
So
and
it's
we're,
best just,
we're not trying to push the limit,
Yeah,
we're
I'm
just
not
trying to do
run
the, we were
anything.
just
No, I
trying to
understand.
get.
It just barely pencils out in today's 145 units, and it's an absolutely underwater of,
Mhm.
100 units
Mhm.
is completely underwater, so. But I appreciate the, discussion there, it just doesn't work. I want to say that we won't be going through the motions.
Gotcha.
Is there additional PUD benefit that if it doesn't meet enough of the threshold?
Yeah, I didn't know that we were here doing that. I thought we were just doing an amendment, and because things weren't changing significantly enough to ask for more things, and then we absolutely have no problem paying the additional park fees. We think that's appropriate. So, I mean, I think it's,
It's a relook at the
Revenue
whole-
and
That was
taxes.
my original question, was whether or not it's a relook at the entirety of the PUD.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct, Councilmember Bottom, it is analysis of the entire PUD from as proposed now. They have the approval in hand at the present level. What they're asking for is a separate approval that you have to weigh on its own merit, so. Excuse me.
Any additional thoughts? I think either way, we're not going to make the,
I made a motion to deny.
well, I think we want to have that come to staff
Yeah,
first.
and I was just clarifying, is the denial resolution I'm bringing back for everything, or is it for approval of the first two and denial of the third
Well,
request?
my motion is to deny all three. And you guys, if you feel compelled, can.
Okay,
All right.
fair enough, yeah. We have a
vote
motion,
no
we have a
and put
second.
motion to,
Do we have a second? Excuse me. No, a second?
Can you,
Go ahead.
okay, if you table it, could you rewrite the motions to three separate resolutions?
Yes.
if you table it, that starts, that doesn't, the clock doesn't.
Well, we would get through the clock before that point.
We have another meeting and
But I
we have
don't
an
know if the
extension. if we get-
benefit, it sounds like if Amira doesn't go forward,
Yeah, the
they
mayor-
probably have no need to ask for the kitchen thing, right, on the additional units on.
I don't even know if the memory care will come if the senior isn't there. So I think it's really the whole project. I mean, the memory care's there because the senior was gonna be there. So if the senior's gone and we don't have senior, then the memory care won't. And the whole project will change again or not. I don't know what to do. I'm just, yeah, so we got another problem on our hands. So,
Or you could, since nobody said they seconded, I guess you could table it 2 weeks and, but I don't know what you would expect to happen.
What would happen at that point, other than drafting the resolution.
Yeah, I think if we're leaning for.
Yeah, we can bring back a resolution for denial of all three, and a resolution for approval of the first two and denial of the third, and we'll leave the approval one in the bucket since it already exists, and you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll make that motion to table it to the May
Mr. Mayor, point of order, I think we still have to address the motion before the council. Presently, we have a motion, unless we're declaring that to be.
Didn't get a second.
Died for lack of a second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So then I will make the motion to table to the May 11th meeting and direct staff to bring back the resolution for denial. And I would also ask that it be broken up as we discussed, so that at least preserves some options in case anything changes.
Second.
Why are you tabling it and asking staff to come back with the denial?
That's what staff asked us to do.
Why can't we just, if we're.
Because we don't have a written grounds for denial drafted up.
The grounds would be that the benefits to the city.
Yeah, it would just be
Are-
drafted together in a document that we,
That's generally how when we've
Okay.
denied projects, that's generally how we've done it.
It may be on
The council
consent,
can control the wording of.
I would imagine, depending on.
Fair enough.
Could be,
Okay.
yeah.
You just want the wording to be correct.
right.
Okay.
We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. There's that. Give them a minute. We go on to 8B. Hopefully Trevor is still with us.
Trevor, if you're still with us, you can go ahead and.
What we supposed,
You want
what
me
we
to
supposed to
present
have denial, anything
Usually
that comes
we
through
present
denial
the
language
applicant's
and
case.
approval language.
Actually, Trevor, give us just a moment. We'll do a staff presentation.
Yes. On these, in these situations, I thought we were gonna have a denial and an approval
Drafted ahead of time.
drafted ahead of time.
We've done that when it's gone to the planning commission. If they have recommended denial, that's generally when we've done that. We've not done that. We haven't.
When it just comes.
When it just comes to the city council. That's been our past practice to bring it.
As long as we
when
have the
there's
time.
denial.
Yeah, we run into time.
Yeah, we have
Yes.
a
And we
meeting
do-
and we have a 60-day extension if we need to.
Yes, we
I
have
understand that.
Good.
through, that was a question that I got and confirmed that we did have the timeline, and we have not extended the 60 days.
Perfect. Gotcha. Okay, on to 8B.
Kendra, I'll have you go ahead.
Yeah, this is a request for a time extension for T. Sherber roll-off, a conditional use permit and site plan that the council approved in May of 2021. Our code allows city staff to administratively approve a one-year extension. The applicant submitted that request last year, and it was administratively approved. That one-year extension expires on May 27th. The applicant requested a second one-year extension, and that second extension under our code needs to go to Planning Commission and Council for review. Planning Commission reviewed this on April 6th and voted 2-1 to deny the request. And as noted in your staff report, the reasons for the denial were that they didn't believe the narrative gave a reason for the delay, and the applicant was not present at the meeting. Next slide. So the zoning ordinance does have standards for extensions, that the applicant must demonstrate a good faith effort to attempt to utilize those approvals and provide reasons for the delay, restrictions on financing or some special circumstances. I would note that staff the applicant met with staff a couple weeks ago to show us some revised plans. They are working with their engineer to update the site plans to address the conditions of approval from those 2021 approvals. Next slide. Just as a reminder, this is 19 and 30, that northeast corner, and this is a contractor's yard, there's a backyard, that hashed area is outside storage.
Is the applicant here?
He's online.
Oh, okay.
Trevor.
He's the one we couldn't hear very well.
Which we might need to turn the TV back up for.
Next slide. So, I did on this case provide two resolutions. Staff does recommend adoption of Resolution 2331 approving the one-year extension, that's in your packet. But we also provided a denial resolution as recommended by the Planning Commission. So there are two resolutions with the same number, one approving and one denying.
Thank you. Sounds good. And Trevor, are you still with us?
Trevor, you can go ahead and click unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay, so I guess the biggest hurdle on this project was the drain tile coming through our property and going through my dad's piece on the north and east side of me. I was hoping that he could get his development approved and then we could tie into his storm system. That has taken a little longer for him to get his stuff drawn up and figured out. And now he's at a hurdle where it's gonna take a lot longer than I expected. So we're back to trying to utilize that existing drain tile. And we've got the pond, not necessarily where I'd like it, but for now, that's what we have to do because of this drain tile. So I guess that's been the reason for the delay is it's gonna be a lot easier for me to just jump onto his storm system instead of me using a 20-year-old, 30-year-old 10-inch drain tile. So I guess that's where we're at, but he's got a bigger hurdle, so I'm just gonna get her done, and we're real close, and I'm hoping to move dirt in June.
Okay.
So
Sorry that we got some bad feedback in here. So with the one-year extension, you think, since you're going away from kind of how you had planned to do it, with the other project that you mentioned, you think you'd be able to get it complete with the one-year extension?
yes, yeah, I'm hoping June, by early June, we can have everything completed and start construction. Because I need it for the company pretty bad.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Does anyone else have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, so the tie-in with his dad's drain tile, what stage are you on with, it sounds like your project can't move forward until he moves his project forward?
No, I don't. I think he said he's not doing it.
Isn't he?
No.
tying in?
He changed it,
Oh, he
Sorry.
changed it.
I think. Right? Trevor? I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, no, it was just gonna be a lot easier, and we wouldn't have to do the pond on the north side. We could put it where the drain tile is crossing the property, which would have worked out a lot better. And it would just be easier to make happen with the stormwater system.
So, but
But
that's
now-
not relevant.
Right, but he's not doing that anymore, yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Anything else?
So is he actually starting in June? So when you say hoping to start in June,
What's holding you back?
what's the indicator that you're gonna start in June, or that, and then, what's he have some stuff sitting on his, what's the negative
Of extending it,
yeah.
if it's not built?
Mr. Mayor, he needs to get the plans approved. We do not have approved plans yet. As I said, we met with them a couple weeks ago, but before you can start work, planning and engineering need to sign off on plans and authorize them to move on to the site. The downside to denial is it appears that they're already operating on the site at some level. And so it would become an enforcement issue pretty quickly. So I think certainly, you know, we want to see the business grow in Corcoran, and if he believes he can get those revised plans into engineering and get them approved in the next month or so, that would be ideal.
Has it gone through watershed?
No, he has to get through the city's engineering team, then it goes to watershed, so I would be comfortable saying June is very optimistic, but within 1 year, within the summer, certainly a possibility if they, you know, supply the plan. So 1 year, I would confirm that that's doable, but not starting in June at this point, based on what we've seen.
Is the are you actively doing things on the property, moving, grading, any of that kind of stuff?